What qualities make a good leader? Are Christians called to a particular style of leadership? And what does leadership have to do with spiritual growth? Greetings, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, A Psychologist Looks at Scripture. I'm Peter Doherty, a Catholic priest and a psychologist. Drawing from my background in psychology and scripture studies, I aim to provide unique insights into the Gospels and innovative pastoral teachings for Christians. The Gospels offer a rich reservoir of knowledge and experiences about God for the development of our spirituality. There's always more to uncover. Each episode of my podcast typically lasts between 7 to 10 minutes, during which I share reflections and insights that I hope will be beneficial to you. I welcome your questions and comments. Your feedback is always invaluable. Today's Gospel is a reading from John chapter 21, verse 1 to 19. This Gospel will be read in churches on May the 4th, 2025. In today's Gospel, we have another appearance of Jesus. It's a bit different, though. No doubt, Jesus' death and resurrection certainly caused some soul-searching among the disciples. They were trying to make sense out of last week's events. I suspect that to help break the tension, they decided to go fishing. For many, this was an activity they knew well, and they would be in a comfortable and familiar environment. This is in contrast to what they were feeling at the moment and everything they had recently experienced. I suspect that much of the soul-searching that went on concerned what would they do next. After their experience and the time they had spent with Jesus, could they now simply go back home and live their lives as if nothing happened? They were in fact changed forever. There would be no going back. They unexpectedly meet Jesus, but they do not recognize him. Reminiscent to the time when some of the disciples were first called to be disciples after a night of not catching any fish. Remember Jesus asking them to put their nets out again. Today's gospel is similar. They meet the resurrected Jesus, who invites them to cast their nets. Suddenly they have a big catch, 153 fish to be exact. After following Jesus' command, we read in Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 to 22, or Mark chapter 1, verse 16 to 20, or Luke chapter 5, verse 1 to 11. It is as if the disciples have gone full circle. Unlike the first time, it is John who recognizes Jesus and then tells Peter. Unexpectedly, Peter's response was to jump into the sea. Peter was known for his spontaneous and dramatic actions. What is new, however, in this account is the conversation between Peter and Jesus. It seems to be a separate story that was added to the major story of the apostles going fishing much later. Jesus asks Peter 3 times if he loves him. I have often wondered if Jesus was giving Peter an opportunity to undo his previous denial. I believe the questions were for Peter's benefit. Jesus is very clear in his call to ministry for Peter. At the risk of overanalyzing the dialogue, I cannot help but notice the word feed. Peter is not called to simply tend the sheep, but to sustain them and to nourish them. I wonder if it is significant that Jesus is speaking only to Peter, the leader of the disciples, and not to other people or even the other disciples. This passage would be in keeping with the leadership style advocated by Jesus in numerous scriptural passages. For example, Matthew chapter 20, verse 25 to 28, where it reads, "Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." In Matthew chapter 23, 11 to 12 writes, "The greatest among you will be your servant, and for those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and for those who humble themselves will be exalted." Mark chapter 10, verse 42 is similar to Matthew chapter 20. Jesus teaches about servant leadership. In verse 45, it reads, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." John chapter 13, verse 12 to 17 writes, Jesus demonstrates servant leadership by washing his disciples' feet. "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you must also wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." This teaching on leadership must have been revolutionary to the first listeners to this teaching. Jesus addresses this in Mark chapter 10, verse 42 to 45, as Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. The people were used to the brutality of the Roman occupiers and the contempt of many of the Pharisees who dominated the people and loved to draw attention to themselves. Obviously, Jesus wants to make sure that there are other models of leadership available for his people. The leadership style that Jesus introduced is relational, respecting the dignity of the human person. While an autocratic leadership might be easier and see the results faster, it doesn't respect the person and has no place in Christianity. Some Christian leaders have done a better job than others adhering to this teaching. If we are to live this gospel, we have to prioritize humility and service over power and dominance when we are in responsible positions, reminding ourselves that true greatness comes from serving others, not by exercising control over them. Jesus aimed to prevent power struggles and promote unity within the community. Living up to this teaching in our daily lives might be challenging for some. Sometimes we have to make difficult decisions that will not be popular, but they are necessary. That doesn't mean that they are wrong, but we need to seriously discern if our intentions and our behaviors are in line with Jesus' teaching. What is the true motivation for our actions? Are there opportunities for compassionate responses? I encourage leaders who want to live this teaching to seek out an advisor or someone they trust and who is wise. It is easy to drift. Power can blind even the most well-intentioned person. Thank you for listening. Join me next week when we delve into the passage of John, where we learn about hearing God's call, how our plans may change unexpectedly when we encounter Jesus. If this is the first time tuning in, I encourage you to explore previous episodes available on various podcast platforms and YouTube. New episodes are released every Sunday, focusing on the upcoming week's gospel. Your feedback is invaluable for enhancing this podcast. I would like to express my gratitude to my team members, Heather Patel-Doherty and Richard Coulomb, whose contributions are essential in preparing this podcast. For any questions or concern, please reach out via email at peter.doherty, that's DOHERTYOMI, @gmail.com. God bless you all and have a blessed Easter season.